Welcome to Community with Closers. I'm your host, Pat Clark, and this is where closers are born. Get ready for high-energy stories, game-changing strategies, and the relentless pursuit of success. In each episode, we dissect the art of sealing the deal, celebrate triumphs, and explore the grit that defines salesmanship. This is the ultimate podcast for sales warriors ready to conquer the business battlefield. That's what I'm talking about. What's going on, guys? Pat Clark here with another Community with Closers. We got some high energy for you tonight. It's going to be an amazing session tonight. But we're going to be talking about public speaking. And our guest has been doing it for a while. I'm considering this guy a pro because he actually was able to see me speak. I was speaking at a mastermind. And we had to get some coffee, and I had to get some little tips and tricks from him. But he was gracious enough to pour in and give me that good feedback. And, you know, I really want to talk about this subject because more times than none, you have to be out with your brand. We talk about personal brand. We talk about public speaking, getting out there. You're doing it every day if you're an entrepreneur or a community closer, right? Like, we are doing that on a daily basis, putting our word out there, getting good at speaking, whether it's Facebook Live, if it's a video you got to put out somewhere. Video is the thing. And if you're not doing it, guys, you're going to be left behind. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my man, Philip Sessions. Let's go.
What's going on, Pat? Man, appreciate you having me here. This is so exciting, and I love the subject of public speaking and communication. So excited to be here tonight. Thank you once again.
Yeah, dude. It's an honor, man, to have you on. What you're doing is just outstanding. So I'm like, dude, we got to have you on the podcast and just pour in, right? Because our community, that's what we do on a daily basis. And so, man, I want to kick it off. So tell a little bit about your story. And I know we got some slides today, so we're going to be bringing the fire. But yeah, let's kick it off with your story, man. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. I grew up being this super shy kid. I was in third grade and I missed a day of school, came back, asked the teacher, hey, what did I miss? And she said, oh, you were gone? She didn't even know I had actually missed a day of school. This is how little I talked, and went into high school and kind of would talk to my friends, but that was it. And then going through my corporate career, I have a degree in electrical engineering. So if you don't know anything about electrical engineers, they typically stay behind the computer doing programming, doing designing, and they don't get in front of people. And so I'm kind of a unicorn in that space. But what I found was that one job in particular, after I was kind of getting passed up for a job here, a job there, wasn't finding any girls to date that would be really interested in me or anything like that. I found what happened, and the catalyst was a job I had back in 2016 where I was working in Georgia, Statesboro area, just north of Savannah. And this manager just kept talking down to me. In a previous job to this, I was the young, dumb engineer, although I was going up to North Dakota to program all the control systems up there and make everything work, having the company that was supposed to be doing the work, telling them what to do, even though they were supposed to be the experts, yet I'm young and dumb. And finally, this guy, it was just enough. It was a straw that broke the camel's back to make me realize I need to speak up for myself. And so that's where I started finding mentors through video, being online, going to things like GrowthCon and everything like that. And 10X, all of that stuff, these business seminars and reading books. And through that, I found out that these guys are impacting so many people because they are speaking to the masses. And of course, they've done a lot in business as well. But I saw just how much power was in their speech and in their voice. And I wanted to have that power. And so that's really where I got started doing that. Fast forward a little bit more to 2020. I was actually working with BMW manufacturing, and I had an opportunity to go into the HR training department. And that's where me starting my speaking coaching business started, because when I got there, one of the things they want me to work on was presentation skills. And then I had the idea as an entrepreneur at the time was, you know what? if BMW, this massive conglomerate, needs a speaking coach, essentially, and they identify that presentation skills are important for their associates, their employees, why
Mhm.
don't I do this for other people? And so that's what really started all of this. And of course, my desire just to speak on my own and just pour into others also.
I love that, man. Yeah. So it's funny how life takes you. You know what I mean? Like you really don't know, and life will just take you a different way. And you're like, dude, found a niche, and you're like, this huge conglomerate is like lacking in public speaking. You're like, dude, perfect fit. Let's get this going. And I think that's funny because we think that big businesses are perfect, right?
Yeah.
And our little businesses are like this mess, right? And there is no perfect business, but you have to get out there and you have to really work on your communication, how you're doing it. So let's talk about with public speaking and presentations. Like we've seen Simon Sinek, right? Like he did the TEDx talk and stuff like that. So let's dive into the fundamentals of that. What that looks like. How do we, do a presentation? What would be the beginning steps for us to do a presentation or get ready for public speaking?
So the very first thing right out of the gate is, what is your end goal? Begin with the end in mind. It's not Simon Sinek. It was another guy. I think it says it. I can't think of his name. Maybe it was Simon, but they usually say, begin with the end in mind, or something along those lines.
Hmm.
But we need to think about, what is our objective? Where are we trying to go with our speech, with our presentation, with our conversation? Heck, I've had plenty of conversations with my wife where it was going to be a tough conversation. And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to kind of wing it and figure it out. And it did not go the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah.
Same thing within my corporate job, with
Yeah.
talking with friends, with going into a sales conversation. I wasn't expecting certain rebuttals. I wasn't expecting certain questions. I didn't have the information prepared for that. And I didn't have in mind, well, in the sales conversation, I knew I wanted to close them. But in some of these
Mhm.
other conversations, it's kind of like, I kind of want to talk about this, but I don't know what it looks like at the end of that conversation. And
Mhm.
so by starting with the end in mind, where do I want to go with this conversation? Now I can navigate myself there. Just like with our phones, when we're going somewhere, we put in the GPS, hey, I'm going to go to this location. And if you end up missing your turn, it reroutes you. It's the same thing with you knowing where you're trying to go at the end of it. And we have this happen all the time. Happens to me all the time, and I'm guilty of doing it to people as well, where they get talking and all of a sudden, oh, my entrepreneur brain, my ADHD goes off, and all of a sudden, oh, let me ask this question, and I butt in and I say something, and we're off in left field. And
Yeah.
so you having that end in mind, what you're able to do then, and a mentor taught this to me, is somebody throws a change up on you, you catch the ball, you look at it, you address it real quick, and you table it. Unless
Mhm.
if it's relevant to what you're talking about, most of the time it's not. You can address it really quick, put it off to the side, and then keep going in the direction you need to. It's just like that missed turn. You're going to get back on track, get back on the highway, whatever that looks like for you. But really begin with that end in mind to start.
I love that. That's huge. I mean, I'm just thinking now, like some of the presentations I'm doing, you know what I mean? Because you get those questions or you get thrown a curveball and you're like, holy cow, what's going on here? So that's really good stuff.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's just like sales. So if you're in sales, you hear that where people give a rebuttal, or they'll give some kind of, it's not really I can't think of the word. It's not really an objection. They're just stating something. And a lot of
yes,
times you can just keep moving forward. They
yeah,
don't really want you to answer it. They're just saying it just to see what you'll do, try and throw you off. So that way, hopefully you won't ask them for the money.
yeah.
And same thing in speaking.
Yeah. So before you get into your teaching, because I know you got some really good stuff on here, right? And this is like 45 minutes. And the reason we do this is because on average, it takes 40 minutes to drive to work in the morning. And on average, your workout is going to be about 45 minutes. So that's why we really dive into this. So if I'm just starting out, right, like getting into public speaking or, starting live videos, what would, and I'll say this just to kick it off, but what kind of advice would you give somebody that small business entrepreneur, kind of like afraid to get on stage, afraid to really, mess up, right, with that video? I've seen a couple things there. What kind of advice would you give somebody? Just, let's go, let's get it done.
If you're really that afraid, I mean, just record the video and don't post it. But I would
Mm,
strongly recommend just posting it because guess what? Nobody really knows you. And you have to start
yeah.
somewhere. And the cool thing is, just like in your business, when you sucked at the beginning and
Mhm.
you're great now, you can look back and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I struggled with that. I can't believe I was that bad. Like, oh man. So if you don't have that evidence somewhere, how can you go back and look and see, hey, look, I improved? Like, give yourself a pat on the back that, man, I really improved on my video skills, on my speaking skills. So I would strongly recommend starting to post because if you're not posting too much right now, anyways, a lot of people aren't going to see it. So it really doesn't matter. But by you putting in those reps, you can go back and talk about that later. And you can see what people actually engage with and what they don't engage with. And you have so many metrics that now you can look at, and then you could hire somebody like me as a speaking coach to be able to take a look at that. It's a lot easier when I have clients that are already doing stuff and working with them versus clients that aren't doing anything at all. And it's just like you trying to improve your sales game, yet you never done a sales call. How are we supposed to help you improve if you have nothing that we can talk about that you've had struggles with or anything? So start posting the videos today. You're going to suck. We all suck at the beginning, but
Yeah.
until you get through that fire of sucking at the beginning, you can't get great. Nobody's great right away. So just go after it.
That's so good. That's we actually tell our kids that. You know what I mean? Like you gotta suck first before you get good. Like you're gonna fall. You don't suit up for the ride. You suit up for the fall, for the wreck, because it's gonna happen. So that's so good. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna let you take it away here. I'm gonna bring you up and yeah, man. Can you share and everything?
Yeah, let me make sure. I'm gonna
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll just do share screen.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Perfect. And I'm gonna share this out while you go ahead and bring that up. I'll add that to the stage. Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, here we go.
All right, so we got effective speaking techniques. So I want to go through a couple of things here today. So we've already kind of touched on these a little bit, but I want to dive into some detail there for you and hopefully give you a couple of stories and analogies to really help you understand some effective speaking techniques. And I wanted to really hone in on some of the things that are common objections that I see, common problems that I see with clients that I work with, people that I talk to, the questions that I get asked pretty commonly. So our first one is setting objectives. So when we go into the speech, like we talked about earlier, the very first thing that I always talk to people about is what is your objective with your speech, with your conversation, whatever this is. And I'm going to keep saying speech, but you can apply this to a one-on-one conversation. You can apply this as you speaking to your team, you speaking to management, whatever that looks like. You can apply this same thing, but I'm going to go more on the aspect of speaking to the masses, speaking on a stage per se. So you're not necessarily going to get a lot of dialogue back as I share these analogies, but specific and measurable action to achieve your overall goal is what, setting an objective is by definition. So some things to ask questions about to hit your target is what do you want from the speaking engagement? A lot of times we think, and I talk about this a lot, is don't think about yourself first. You need to be thinking about your audience. But as we're preparing for our speech, we need to think about what do we want at the end of this? Is if we don't get what we want at the end of the speech, it's not going to be good. Or if we're not going to communicate what we want and get across what we want it to communicate, we're not going to feel good about that conversation. And it's not to make sure that your speech or your conversation is all about you at the end of it, but you want to make sure that you are getting your point across. You're getting the things across that you want to get across. And then we'll see here in a minute about how we make sure we include the person or people that we're talking to there. But what do you want from your speaking engagement in the first place? That's the very first question that you need to ask yourself. Just like a vision, with if we know who we're trying to sell to, we know who we're trying to target, what our business is for, the vision of our business, we can then be able to target that a lot easier. Going back to our GPS example as well, if I don't put an address in, how do I know I'm going in the direction that I want to go? If I don't put anything in as a destination, how do I know when I'm at that destination? So that's why we need to decide what we want from that speaking engagement. And then what do you want the audience to learn or take away from your speaking engagement? This is another thing that I'm shocked that people don't do when they get into speaking. They just go up there and they just start speaking about business or speaking or sales or marketing, and they give a bunch of information, which isn't bad, but it's all over the place and it's not very direct. And so then the audience doesn't really, they kind of learn, but they don't. And you've probably been in some of those situations where you were in a meeting, or you heard somebody talk, or maybe even read a book or listened to a podcast, and at the end you're like, huh, you know, what did I actually learn from that? I don't remember anything. Like, I kind of I didn't retain anything. Like, I heard some stuff, sounded kind of good, but I didn't really learn from it. And that is a disservice as a speaker to your audience. So you want to make sure that you solidify what it is that we're going to be talking about in that speech. So I talked about speaking techniques. So giving you some effective speaking techniques for you today. So we're going through exactly a couple things that will help you be a more effective speaker. And so that's what my objective here is. I want you to learn that, and I want you to have these takeaways there. And so just to give you that example there. Next is, what is your core message? We can't build a business. We can't build anything without a core. A lot of times we think of core values. If we want to build a culture in a business, you don't just start saying, oh, we're just going to be good people. What does that mean? Everybody has a different definition of what good is. So integrity, trust, openness, transparency, maybe those are some things that are your core values. But when you have that core value, then you can start to build a culture around that. And so the same thing with your speaking engagement. When you have a core message, a centralized theme or a thought, you can start to build things around that. Just like, again, going back to this presentation here, we're talking about effective speaking techniques. So that's my core message. The very first thing that's under, and I look at like an umbrella. So this umbrella or this core message is effective speaking techniques. And one thing underneath that umbrella, it's being covered by the umbrella, is setting objectives, which ultimately goes back to the overall core message, or the overall objective of what I'm going to teach today is about effective speaking techniques. And so having that core message is going to be vital for you to be able to have an effective speech. And then last thing is, how do you want the audience to feel when you're done? Do you want them to feel inspired? Do you want them to feel good about themselves? Do you want them to feel bad, pissed off, ready to go take action, make some changes in their life? Think about that, because facts tell and stories sell. The emotion that you give people will leave a more lasting impact than any fact or figure that you can share with them. The feelings that you create within your audience, they'll remember that way more than they'll ever remember anything that you taught them. I mean, heck, Pat, in the introduction, he talked about, like, he was talking about how I gave him a bunch of value. We got on a coffee, or had lunch, and talked about his speech and some things he could do to get better. But I bet if I asked him what were those things, he probably couldn't remember. But he felt good because I was willing to get together for lunch and just pour into him, give him some value, help him out with his speaking career. And so that made him feel good. And he remembered that about me. And it's the same thing when you're getting on that stage, when you're speaking in front of the potential client. How are you making them feel? How do you want to make them feel? So that's the last part of setting objectives within your speech. Next thing is our audience analysis. So who are we talking to? Well, right now we're talking to a community of closers. So these are entrepreneur-minded people. These are people that are in sales, that are entrepreneurs that want to win in life. So I know I can talk to you a little bit more direct right now. I know that I need to inspire you and give you some good information that's tangible that you can go take, because you are an action taker. But if I was talking to engineers, I'd have to get a lot more into the details. If I'm talking with HR people, I'm going to be speaking a different way. The way I talk to my children is different than the way I talk to my wife. The way I talk to the guys is different than I talk to the women that I'm around and that I do business with and everything. The people that you're speaking to matter. So you need to figure out who in the world are you talking to? What is their sex? Maybe what is their race? There is a little play in there with race and everything, but I would probably not focus on that too much. But what is their sex? What is their background? What is their industry knowledge? If you're at an industry event, who are you talking to when it comes to your sales presentation, your pitch? Are you talking to a bunch of decision makers? Are you talking to the technical people that are going to do this? Are you talking to the people that are working with their hands? They blue collar, white collar. Who are you talking to? That's the first thing that we need to look at. And then how can you relate to them? Already mentioned this with facts tell and story sell. It's by using personal stories. So as you are sharing a message, the more you can bring a story in is great. But if you compare that story with a personal story about you, something that's personable to you that will then relate to the audience as well, that's the trifecta there. Yes, you want to have some information that you can share with the audience. You want to talk with the audience and you want to have a story that can relate with the information that you're telling to that audience and can relate with that audience. But if you can bring in a story that relates with your message, relates with the audience, and relates with yourself, that's a personal story. That is the trifecta, which will get people to be won over by you hand over fist. If you can do that, and it may not happen all the time, that's okay. But the more personable the stories that relate to the audience and relate to the message that you're sharing, the better. At a minimum, you need to have a story that relates to whatever information that you're giving. You do not want to sit there. If I was to start talking about a fitness story right now, that would make absolutely no sense because you are not fitness people. I'm not talking about fitness. And yeah, maybe I work out and stuff like that. So I kind of relate it with me. But it first and foremost needs to relate to what you're talking about, then to your audience, and then about you if you can do that. So that's kind of with the personal story. So the more personable you can get, the more they're going to be bought in. We talk about transparency, authenticity a lot, vulnerability. Those are all buzzwords right now that are out there on social media. But that is the truth. It's not just a buzzword. It is something that is important for the audience to be able to feel connected to you. And then where are you speaking at? If you're on a virtual stage like I am right now, you need to make sure that you bring the energy. They talk about the camera adds 10 pounds to you. Well, the camera takes away probably 50 to 70% of your energy. So you really have to bring the energy in order to get people just to feel like you're talking to them in a monotone voice. I mean, it's incredible. And it's really kind of detrimental that the camera takes away so much energy. But if you're on camera, you need to make sure you're bringing that energy. If you're there at a corporate setting, maybe you're not going to tell some of the crude jokes that maybe you would if it was just your guys and everything like that. Your buds that you're hanging out with at the cabin or something like that. But where you're speaking at is important. Of course, who you're speaking in front of as well. Again, going back to the adults versus children, if we're speaking in front of children, we're probably going to watch the cussing we're doing. If we're speaking in front of adults, we may cuss more, and depends on where we're speaking at. If you're speaking at church, you're probably not going to cuss at all. But if you're speaking somewhere else, maybe you're going to cuss a little bit. And if you cuss, it's on you if you want to cuss or not. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. I've seen plenty of great speakers that do cuss, and I've seen plenty that don't. But you've got to be you at the end of the day. So if that's what you do, do you. Gary Vee, Andy Frisella, guys like that, they cuss a lot. And people realize that. And actually, Andy, at one point, I stopped listening to his podcast because I'm not a big fan of cussing. But I realized his message was so good and he gave such good information. I gave it another shot. And then I just decided to ignore the cussing as much as possible and not let that bother me because the message was so important for me in my business development. So be you at the end of the day. People will like you or they won't. And then what are your audience's interests? So again, going back to the stories, we need to make sure we relate to them, because if we talk about your interest, then as I'm sharing a message, as you're sharing a message, you can start to bring their interest in with that. So I know Pat's a father. I'm a father as well. If I start talking about being a girl dad, I'm going to resonate a lot more with the guys that are only girl dads. I mean, if the guy's got a girl dad, I hear Pat laughing there. But if the guy has a girl, he's gonna understand that some. But if you're only a girl dad like me, I've got two now, one that's two, one that's 2 weeks, and it's an incredible journey so far. But by bringing that up, I can relate with that audience more. And I can talk about their interest and how they love being a father, and how that has changed their life. So find their interest within what it is that they do as well. And so when you're going to a bigger event, you don't know who everybody is, you're going to have to kind of get some generalities. So some things that you can do in order to know kind of who's there is asking the event host or event coordinator, hey, who's kind of in your audience here? What are the things that they typically do? What's their occupation? What do they want to hear? You can even ask the event host, hey, what exactly do you want me to talk about? What are some important points for me to cover? And by asking those questions to them, you can then gauge the audience with that. And if they don't know, something you can do as well is just start asking some questions at the beginning. Like, hey, who here has been in sales? Hey, who here owns their own business? You can ask little questions like that. And based on how many people in the audience start raising their hands, you can kind of get a feel pretty quickly for some things that you can then find in common and be able to add stories in that maybe you didn't have, or find ways to be able to pinpoint their interest to make it seem like you're talking to them. And why we do this audience analysis is so we can feel like, or so they can feel like we are talking to them. We are talking with them, not to them or above them. We're not talking down to them. We want to make sure that, so that's why this audience analysis is important. Last thing is overcoming nervousness. So many people struggle with this. And really, at the end of the day, it comes down to our ego. We are so worried about who I am, how I'm going to look, are people going to judge me? And very few people really care about you. Most people care about themselves and are only thinking about themselves. So throw that crap out the window because that doesn't matter. Yeah, and you should leave your ego at the door anyways, but nobody's really thinking about you. People are there to listen to you because they think you have a message. And if you are on a stage, especially somebody has invited you to speak on their stage, you have the authority. And that event host has the confidence in you, so you should have the confidence in yourself, because people that get invited to stages don't just get invited because, oh, hey, you got a cool shirt on, you got a cool hat. Like, yeah, let's get you on stage. No, people that are speaking on stages, unless they pay to be on the stage, are invited because they actually have something worth sharing. So you need to get rid of those nerves because you are there for a reason. And guess what? It doesn't matter if you can connect with everybody. We're never going to connect with everybody. Our product or our service is not for everybody, but it is for one person. And so you need to focus in on that one person. So the three things that can really help you overcome your nervousness is: one, have confidence in yourself and your message. Without confidence in yourself, without confidence in your message, your product, your service, how do you expect to have anybody follow you? How do you expect anybody to buy in to your product or service? If you don't have confidence in your own product, nobody's going to buy it. And so, same thing with your message. If you have no confidence in your message, if you don't feel, when people hear you speak, if they don't feel the passion from you, if they don't see your excitement as you're sharing that message and the belief that you have behind that message, they're not going to believe a word. But before that, if you don't have the confidence in yourself, nobody's going to believe you either. Just like a new salesperson that comes in and, yeah, so we've got this product here. It's really good. It's these shingles. They don't mess up the gutters because of how they're made and everything. that guy's not getting any kind of sale for roofing because he sounds so nervous. He's stuttering over his words. And that may be a lack of confidence in the product, but it's a lack of confidence in himself. And he feels like he doesn't have the authority to be able to share and sell and close or really help that potential prospect. And so you have to have confidence in yourself, because people will trust in people that have confidence, and that have confidence in your message, because then people will believe in your message too. The next thing is having clarity. Going back to setting our objectives. If we aren't crystal clear on exactly where we're trying to go with our message, exactly what we're going to talk about, if you don't have that clarity, then people are going to be confused at the end of it. They're not going to even know what you talked about. Like, oh, okay, that was cool. Like, Philip was pretty motivating, seems pretty excited about what he's talking about. He talked about some kind of speaking stuff, but I don't know what he talked about. So having clarity and being crystal clear on the direction and what it is that you're talking about is important. And when you have that clarity, that builds up confidence in yourself. Because I've had to speak in front of people before where I wasn't able to prep. I didn't know who was in the room. I didn't even know exactly what I was supposed to be talking about because I didn't understand the subject that well, but I had to go up there and present it. I was super nervous because I wasn't clear on what it is that I was supposed to be talking about. I didn't have a full, in-depth understanding of what I was supposed to be talking about in that presentation. So you need to have clarity in your message. And the more you know it, just like sales, the more you've done it, the more comfortable you are with your product or your service, the more clear you're going to be able to deliver that pitch, and the more confidence is going to be built there, and the less nerves you will have. And then take action repeatedly. Like we mentioned, Pat, you were talking about the videos and everything. Do videos. You may not have an opportunity to speak on a virtual stage like this or speak in front of hundreds or thousands of people. You may not want to go have a one-on-one conversation with people or talk with a group of people. You may not have that opportunity, but you can do a video. And I promise you, if you do a video every single day, you will start to gain confidence. And I've got a buddy named Patrick. So not this Pat, but I've got a buddy named Patrick. I did a 30-day live challenge last year. And it was for 1 to 2 minutes. You had to get on once a day for 30 days and do a 1 to 2 minute video. What was phenomenal was he was completely nervous at the beginning. He gets on his phone, Facebook Live counts down 3, 2, 1. I mean, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And that was literally the whole challenge was do it live for 1 to 2 minutes. You can talk about whatever you want. It didn't matter. You just needed to go 1 to 2 minutes every day for 30 days. And he was nervous as can be for that countdown. But as he started going, he started getting more comfortable with it in the moment. What was incredible, though, was on day 6. He was nervous. Day 6, he's like, all right, yeah, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Like he was ready to go. Like, yeah, I'm going to start talking. And he had so much more confidence just in 6 days. And by day 30, and really even before day 30, probably the last 10 days, he went from the required 1 to 2 minute video to doing 5 to 10 minutes on a live. This was a guy that was so nervous about a stupid 3, 2, 1 countdown on the phone turned into just sitting there talking. He even came up with like story corner and all this, like, just stuff, just having fun with it. But it's because he took action repeatedly that he was able to get rid of those nerves. So you don't have to do a 30-day live challenge, but I do challenge you to start doing videos every single day. And I promise you, those nerves will start to go away because you'll start having the confidence in yourself. You'll start having confidence in yourself and in your message. And so how I can help, I'm just going to throw this in here real quick, but how I can help and how I help my clients is with speech prep, with presentation prep, pitch reviews, and confidence in your message. I'll leave this up here, a couple more seconds. That's QR code. If you just want to connect, no strings attached there. 30 minutes, we can hop on a call and everything. and I can probably put it in a comment as well. So if you want to get a link, hop on a call real quick. Happy to hop on a call and just have a conversation. But Patrick, gonna stop sharing and turn it back over to you, man.
All right, man, dude, that was gold, gold. But yeah, reach out to Philip. He's got some amazing stuff just to, coach you through those few, first few, whatever it is, right? If you got a presentation coming up, he can take care of you for sure. You're going to be in good hands. But that's the thing is like, getting out there, doing the live, all you got to do is start, right? We always say not one day, it's start today, and you just got to do it. And like you said, for me, it was the same thing. I go back and I look at previous, videos that I did on YouTube way back when. Oh, and I'm like, holy moly, what was I doing? But you're locking that, you're time stamping this stuff that you can look back on. You know what I mean? Like I was talking to my friend Kevin, who owns the New York branch, and we're going through pictures, man. And like he's like, dude, we got to sit down and just go through these pictures because it's memories, right? It's a timestamp in time that you can go back and just reminisce. So same with videos. Just go put it out there, and you can go back and see how far you've come. And it's almost like a picture book. That you're
Yeah.
just tracking yourself and you're seeing the success that you're doing with video.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then as you're starting to talk to new clients or you're bringing in people on your team and everything, now you can say, look, I started here. I was not good like this at first, but I started doing these videos and started doing this, that, and the other. And look where I'm at now. You think I'm great now, but look back 2, 3, 4 years ago, I was not great. So, but you have to get started. If you don't get started, you're never going to get good. You're going to continue to be nervous. You're going to get passed over for so many opportunities. So just get started speaking today.
That's so good. And that's the reality is there's so much opportunity out there and you will impact somebody. So if you just do that, start going live and, talk about it. Like you're saying, Philip, you're going to get so much feedback and it's going to make you feel way better. And then just being authentic, like being real. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just you're going to mess up, you're going to say something wrong, but that's the reality of like life is messy, and for me, I know when I started doing them, I was doing them with my business, right? And it was like, dude, today's Motivation Monday. And we'd be like, what's up, guys? And we were just having a good time. But people were like, dude, like, you helped me. And I'm like, what? How did I help you? Like, well, I was in a bad, I woke up, man, and this and that happened. And, my guys didn't show up. And you really just impacted me. And those are the things that you're going to help somebody else and you're going to keep wanting to do it. I've heard so many stories, you know what I mean? Like TikTok and stuff like that. The guy with his son was sick or whatnot, and he started posting videos and he's helping thousands upon thousands of people. And so, I started small. I feel like when I first started speaking, it was like classroom setting, 8, 9 people, something like that. And I started teaching and people were like, dude, that was awesome. And I was like, okay. So then, started doing more teaching and then the crowd started getting bigger. And then they're like, hey, come speak at one of our events. And I'm like, all right, cool. And it was all free. You know what I mean? Like just pouring back into the community in your industry that you're in, and it just kept going from there. And then I'm not a public speaker, if you will, but it's just pouring out your heart and what you were saying in that. And I want everybody on here to go back to the beginning of this podcast, re-listen to it on the way to work if you're working out, because Philip shared so much gold nuggets that you can take and get started right away. And like you said, Philip, get started and then follow up with you and say, hey, send me a video of your last speaking gig, and then you can really look at it and identify some things and then coach people through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I want to mention real quick at the videos, what's so cool about that, and you're probably thinking, oh, everybody's doing videos. There's so many people doing videos. I can't tell you how many times people be like, oh man, I saw your video. They can't tell me which one it was. I mean, and I'm posting basically every day, so I don't even really know what they're talking about. But they're like, "Oh, I saw your video," and I've even had people that were further along in business than me that I kind of knew from Facebook, but didn't really know. Like they were in a mastermind group I was a part of, and they're like, "Hey, man, I recognize you from somewhere." And the only thing is actually we weren't even friends on Facebook. He was just happened to be in the group, and he was higher up in the group, like one of the higher levels, and I was
Yep.
like at the entry level, if you will. And he recognized me because of the videos that I posted. That's the only thing that I can think of, because we were only connected within that Facebook group, but not as Facebook friends. And so
Got it.
videos, people will see them. People will see you, and that distinguishes you from anybody else. Really, even within your industry, because you're the person that is actually doing videos. And the
Yeah.
other thing behind that is you can have a great graphic, you can have some great polished studio photos of you, headshots of you, and that's great. And there's definitely a place for that. But nothing can replace the authenticity of you being yourself on video, because when you're sharing yourself on a video, as soon as you get in front of that prospect, they're like, oh, yeah, that's the same Pat that I've seen on video. So they already are familiar with you. And we all know you have to build up that know, like, and trust. Video does that. A text post, a picture post, it'll do some, but video will do that so much more.
Yes. Video's worth 1,000 words, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's so good. And getting on stage is rewarding too. Like I still get nervous. Like you had that slide and it was like, get over that. And that hit home for me because you don't think of it as your ego, right? You
Mm.
don't think of it as that. But like my palms will be sweating. I'm like, man, I just want this to be impactful for somebody in the crowd. If I can bless one person, that's it. Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. If I can bless one person that can take that, I did my job. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I always talk to my past self in my classes and stuff like that, and I think that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Is impacting others, and in return, it's like that golden rule, right? Like if you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want, right? Like you
Yeah.
get it back tenfold.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to mention this point that you won't ever truly get over those nerves. And the nerves that you're talking about, you're not worried about how am I going to look? How are you going to look? You're worried about, am I actually going to be able to create impact with this audience? And that's
Yeah,
what you're nervous about. And those are the good nerves. When you like have zero nerves whatsoever, that means your ego has gotten in the way and you think you are almost like a god to the audience. You're there for their benefit. No, like, I mean, at the end of the day, you are, because you're supposed to be pouring into them. But if that's what you're thinking, like, oh yeah, I'm they should be grateful that I'm here to speak to them, that is a
Mhm.
problem. So having some nerves is good. Being nervous that, am I going to be able to provide the value that they need? That's a great thing to be nervous about. But when we let that ego get in the way, when we have no nervousness at all, that's bad. And of course, if we have the debilitating nervousness that we're afraid of everything and don't get on stage, that's also bad.
Yeah. I'm with you there, man. All right. Well, to wrap this up, dude, you crushed it, by the way. That was awesome. So, again, for everybody listening, if you're listening on YouTube or if you're on Spotify on the podcast, you know, appreciate you being here, community with closers. We're going to be bringing you amazing guests every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So go back, if you're doing live right now, or go back and really dive in and listen to these things and apply them, right? Like that's the thing. It's not the taking action. It's also the speed of implementation, right? Like actually putting these things in and practicing what you're doing and getting better. That's what it's all about. So with
Yes,
that being said,
sir.
Philip, what's one big thing that for the audience that they can kind of like do, I guess you'd say, or like one thing that they can jump into to get into this stuff with public speaking and training?
I'm gonna kind of double down on the videos. So just
Okay.
start doing videos, but setting the intention to start talking to people about that as well. That's what I found for myself. I've been able to get on more stages because I put that intention out there. I've talked
Mhm.
with people about, hey, I this is what I speak about. This is what I want to get on stage and talk about. And having that one core message. That's something I didn't mention here, but a lot of speakers, they're guilty of, well, I can speak about anything. I'm into fitness, I'm into business, I'm into sales, I can talk about speaking. they have all these things they can talk about. And because you're a master of none, nobody wants you on their stage. So master one message, get known for one message, and that will start to help those stages come open to you. But you have to go out and ask for it as well. So do videos, go down to one message and start asking people if you can be on their stage, or create one yourself.
There it is. There it is. I love it, man. Well, thanks, Philip, so much, man, pouring in. I know, there's a lot, there's a lot to it, and you just unpacked a lot of stuff. So really appreciate your time tonight, man. And thank you again for being on the podcast, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
You got it. All right, everybody. Have an amazing night. Follow us again. And if you are on YouTube, like and subscribe. We're going to be bringing these videos to you every week live on YouTube. Thank you and have an awesome night.